Hi, I'm Karlene and welcome to the Makeover Mama. Here I enjoy sharing ways to make over everyday meals and prepare family food that is minimum effort and maximum payoff on a budget. We are a family of 5 with boys aged 9, 5 and almost 1. In this current season of life, I really want to embrace the little things to create a memorable childhood for our children, and we'll share how we do family life, homemaking, and seasonal events on a budget, and how you can too. Good morning, welcome to my kitchen. If this is your first time here, I normally do clean up this mess before we get rolling, but we're going to roll with the punches today because I'm working off about 5 hours sleep. Anyway, if you are returning, I so appreciate you clicking on this video and spending some time with me here in my kitchen. In this week's video, I'm going to make 3 surprisingly delicious meals using, drumroll, one-handed, doesn't have the same ring to it, rice bubbles. Yes, I'm serious. No, I don't mean straight from the packet. These are family-friendly meals. They are made on a budget. They are so good, I will be making them again. So the first one we're gonna make is a dupe for Red Rooster chicken strip subs, because for our family to go and get takeaway is like $50. So we're gonna do homemade strip sub combos with Red Rooster style fries. We're gonna be making Greek meatballs along with Greek fries, slathered in Tzatiki sauce and crumbled feta and all of the goodness. And we're also gonna make honey mustard chicken schnitzels with a delicious crumb. Think back to, I feel like, every high school canteen. Do you remember those crispy, sweet chili chicken subs that you would get in like your high school canteen? That's the vibe that I was going for. I'm like, I just want like crispy chicken. So I came up with a recipe for that, but we're gonna do a honey mustard sauce instead. Some of these meals are cook once and eat twice. Part of these meals you can make ahead. So I'm gonna try and make it really easy for you to recreate these dinners at home if you have a bunch of kids like I do. Even if you don't, you've got leftovers to last you all week and you can cook once and eat 3 nights. Now I think that's everything that's on the agenda. Let's get cooking. Here is our magic ingredient. So if somebody says they're having cereal for dinner, this is this is not the same. Okay, we're gonna go with, I'm doing in quotation fingers here, rice pops, rice bubbles, same thing. And we're also going to need some nice baguette style bread. I got this 2-pack from Coles for like $2.50, $2.40. And then we've got some chicken breasts. So this is gonna last us a couple of nights, but that's about 1.5 kilos of chicken breasts as well. So I've just popped that to the side, and we're gonna make the herbed mayo that Red Rooster like to put on their subs, and it's also great for a dipping sauce. So we're gonna go in with about 1/2 cup, I'm probably a bit more generous, but I was aiming for 1/2 cup of whole egg mayonnaise, something nice and creamy. And we're going to add some pickle juice. If you saw my last video, I pickled some cucumbers, and you just want that sweet, tangy pickle juice there. So if you've got sweet gherkins or you've got something else like that, cocktail onions, you can try using that. Mine was like a sweet pickle, so that's why I wanted to use it. And we're gonna go in with about 1/2 teaspoon of dried dill. If you have fresh dill, that's fine, use that. And I was going to go in with about a teaspoon, like a heaped teaspoon of mixed herbs, but that's all that I had left. So we're just going to make do with that. And we're going to season that with salt and pepper. Now, if you don't have pickle juice, you just want something tangy. So you can use apple cider vinegar, normal white vinegar, white wine vinegar, use something acidic. Anything that you have is fine. Because mine was a sweet pickle, it wasn't sour enough to taste, like for my taste, so I just added a little squirt of lemon juice there, but you don't have to do that. Once you're happy with the flavor, pop that in the fridge until everything else is done. Next up, we're going to make a simple batter so that the rice bubbles have something to stick to. We're going to go in with about 1/2 cup of plain flour, and we want to make this really flavorsome, so we're going to be adding in about 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and we've got some salt and pepper, as you can see. So I season everything as I go, as a way to make everything really flavoursome. And we're just going to add a small touch of water so that it's nice and thick, almost like a really thick custard. We're going to take 6 potatoes and cut them into home style fries, and we're going to add 2 palmfuls of water into our glass dish and microwave that for 10 minutes to soften before roasting them. And I'm going to just shred up some iceberg lettuce, because that's what Red Rooster normally put with their subs, to go along with our herbed mayo. And I'm just going to prep everything else while the potatoes are getting pre-cooked. Next up is our homemade Red Rooster fry seasoning. We're going to need chicken stock, smoked paprika, salt, pepper, garlic and onion powder. If this isn't your first time in my kitchen, you would know that these are sort of the similar things that I like to use all the time. That way I'm not spending a whole lot of money on ingredients that I would never use again. I used 2 teaspoons of salt for this. I don't know why. I should have just used 1 teaspoon, and I was going to, and I doubted myself. Don't, because the chicken stock powder has salt in it anyway as one of like its main ingredients. So 1 teaspoon of salt is fine. 1 teaspoon of stock powder. Season it with some pepper to taste, and we're going to do 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and we're also going to do 1 teaspoon of onion powder. And with the smoked paprika, I don't want to go too heavy handed there. It's really just to help it add a nice golden color to our fries. I want this to be a really fine powder because, you know, Red Rooster fries normally don't have visible chunks of herbs and spices on them. So I'm just going to mix that through and use my mortar and pestle that accidentally matches my bench top. And we're going to grind that to a really fine powder so that we can toss that through over our fries. To make this super fine crumb, we're going to need 3 cups of rice bubbles. I started with 2, but after I threw them in the blender, I thought, oh, that doesn't look like as much as I'll need. But I went with the 2 cups, but yeah, I went back and had to do more. So just start with 3 cups and throw that into your food processor or blender, whatever you have. And I'm just crunching up the little bits that were sort of missed by the blades and just making sure there's no like huge chunks of rice bubbles in there, because I want this to be a super fine crumb. Pop that aside while we prep our chicken. So for this, we're just going to use 2 chicken breasts to feed my family of before we'll be eating this meal, because chicken sub's a bit much for not even a 1-year-old to process. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to slice them in half to thin them out instead of smashing them out, because that just splatters salmonella everywhere, and this is just quicker. So I'm just going to slice them in half, and the subs normally have almost like little tenderloin sort of pieces in them, so we're just going to go ahead and slice them in half again so that we've got 4 pieces coming from 1 chicken breast. And I'm just going to do that for both pieces. We've got 1 little tenderloin attached there, so I'm just going to leave him as is, and then I'm going to do the same with the other chicken breast. Now it's taken 10 minutes to prep everything else, so now our potatoes are pre-cooked, like cooked through. So I'm just going to drizzle, I've just drained out the water, like the 2 palmfuls of water that I'd thrown into my little Pyrex dish from the 90s. I've joked about that before if this isn't your first time here. And I've drained out that water and tossed through some vegetable oil, and then we're going to add our seasonings as well. And then I just like to, I've just looked at that, eyeballed it, and I thought, oh, that, you know, looks like enough. I don't want it to be too salty, because, you know, sometimes Red Rooster fries are like, so much salt. We're just going to give that a toss through, and then we're going to dump that out onto our prepared oven tray. And then we're going to get that in the oven to crisp up and make it nice and golden. So I like to use these washed potatoes because it just saves me time having to peel a bunch of potatoes and, you know, prep everything. So that's just a way that I like to cut corners to get dinner on the table quickly. Now that all the prep work is done, we're going to go ahead and drop our chicken into the batter and then into that crumb mixture there. So I'm just going to use one hand to sort of coat the chicken in the batter, and then trying to hold it by the little end and making sure the little tip is covered in it as well. I'm just going to drop that into our rice bubble, like our blended rice bubbles, to act like a crumb, and using my other hand to try and cover that on and then press it in. And it's okay if the batter is on the thicker side, because it kind of has that sort of drippy kind of look about it, like, you know, when KFC has theirs, like their batter sort of coated in there. So that's okay if it's on the thicker side, because once it cooks up it doesn't taste floury at all. So I'm just making sure that that's covered really well, and then I'm going to just pop that on a plate while my oil is getting preheated. So it is a bit of a messy job, but it is well worth it. And yes, I do wash my hands very well in between touching anything else. While I'm throwing my chicken into some oil in the background there, I want to go ahead and warm up our bread subs in the oven. But I don't want them to dry out and get so hard and crispy that it hurts my little kid's teeth. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that up in some alfoil. You reckon it's big enough? You reckon I ripped off a piece big enough for it to warm up without... No, you guessed it. Not big enough. It's like trying to wrap a Christmas present over here. Flashbacks from last year. I'm just going to go ahead and rip off another bit because I didn't use enough. But anyway, works fine. Got to throw that in the oven to warm that through, ready for our subs. Okay, the chicken is nice and golden, so it is time to assemble our Red Rooster strip sub combo. You can see I've got some wax paper in the background there that I just cut into little square pieces because I'm going to wrap these up, which I thought would be a really nice way to have a picnic lunch, or, you know, just make it feel a little bit more special for the family, because, you know, it's the little things that make a meal special. So I'm just going to go ahead and use our herbed mayo that's been marinating in the fridge, and I'm going to add some crispy lettuce, and I'm going to go ahead and cut these in half because, I mean, you know, the kids aren't going to eat a whole one, of course. And I wanted to add the mayo onto both sides of the bread, just so that nothing feels dry. That's one of our little chicken pieces there. So you can see that that crumb has really adhered well, and it has crisped up beautifully, and it was not dry at all. Side note on the mayo, we did have a little bit left just to dip our fries into, but you so could have easily made more of this. It was so delicious. So I'm just going to take my little squares of wax paper and I'm just going to fold it over so it ends up having 4 points like this. So it doesn't need to be perfect. So I'm just folding it over one more time just because of the length of my little subs, my little baguettes. And I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that up, and then I'm going to tie it off with some twine that I had on hand, and I'm going to assemble all of these ready for dinner. And here is our dinner all ready to go. I put it together as if you could take it like away for a picnic, being it's springtime and it's beautiful weather outside. My kids were so excited just to see it looking all, you know, pretty, paying, you know, a bit of attention to the detail there, so dinner wasn't boring. They loved it. And this is how much chicken we had left over. For tonight's dinner, we're going to use our mad knife skills to chop up some potatoes. That's just a cop out of my husband, who says that I look like I'm going to cut a finger off at any moment. He watches one of my videos. What's this then, Dan? What's this then? Anyway, just having a little fun there. So we're going to do crispy potatoes tonight with some honey mustard chicken schnitzels, not creamy style, nice and sweet. And I'm just going to go ahead and stick it in Mum's Pyrex dish from 95 with 2 palmfuls of water, and we're going to microwave that for 10 minutes. These potatoes were so popular around the dinner table, the kids were asking for them again and again this week, so they did appreciate the flavour and the texture, so I hope your kids will too. On the side, we're just going to do simple steamed veggies tonight because I just want something really easy and quick, using broccoli and zucchini. I'm just cutting them into little battens so that baby can, hold those and feed himself. I've added some water to the bottom of my saucepan there to steam them so that when it's go time, everything's ready to go. I can just flick them on and then just walk away. Walk away! Or bath the baby or do something helpful, but yes. We're going to make the same batter as we did the night before, but we're going to use about 3/4 of a cup of flour as opposed to 1/2 cup to make sure that each piece is really well coated. Adding just enough water so it's a nice thick consistency, just like this. Next up, I'm going to prepare our crumbs. So we're going to use our rice pops, our rice bubbles to do that. And we're going to go in with 2 cups this time. And I'm going to not make it so fine. So like I mentioned before, it's kind of like those sweet chili chicken tenders that you remember from the high school, like tuck shop, that had like little bubblers in them and they were like crispy, but they weren't like a crumb as such. They had more texture about them. That's what I want for tonight's dinner. I use the end of my rolling pin just to crush them partially. Almost breaking my wrist there doing that. But I mean, you could use, cocktail muddler or whatever you like, to meat mailer, whatever you got. You can use that to crush them up, but you just don't want to crush them all up so that it's not super fine. Next up, I'm going to prepare the last 2 chicken breasts that I had left over from the packet that I bought earlier. So there is a little tenderloin attached there that I've just sort of severed and set off to the side. So I'm just going to slice them in half so that they're nice and thin, but I'm going to use our little meat mallet just to thin it out that little bit more to make sure that our schnitzels will cook quickly and evenly for tonight's dinner. I'm just throwing them back into the container they came in just to help me try and streamline this process as I prepare things. And I'm just sort of separating that extra little section off to the side of the chicken breast there, so then they'll be like the little kids size little portions, and like the larger portion will be for like hubby and myself. Now that's all the pieces prepared from 2 chicken breasts. I'm just going to pop that to the side while I get other things ready. Now the 10 minutes are up, so it's time to drain the potatoes. We've drizzled them with some olive oil, and we're going to season them with a decent sprinkle of some salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder. You know the drill, right? A sprinkle of smoked paprika, and tonight we're going to add a dash of oregano. Mix that through well and dump out onto a pre-prepared tray and bake for about 180 until nice and golden on all sides. Next up is our assembly line for our schnitzels, and we are just going to go ahead and cover that in that thick batter first, and then we're going to roll them in our crumb mixture. You want to go ahead and press the chicken firmly into all of those little rice bubbles and sort of thin it out as you go, if that makes sense. You're sort of flattening the meat out as you go, so that way it's really pressed on there firmly and they won't just fall off once you get them into that hot oil to shallow fry them. Next up, we're going to assemble our honey mustard sauce. So we're going to need honey, mustard. I'm just going to use my little Pyrex dish here. And I read a little trick when you want to measure out honey to give it a light spritz of cooking spray first, with however you're measuring it. And it's meant to stop the honey from sticking, so that when you're measuring other ingredients, it's not just a sticky mess. So we're going to go in with just under half a cup of honey. My mum brought this home for me from the farmer's market, which was lovely. Locally sourced honey. So we're going to use almost half a cup of honey, and then we're going to also use some chicken stock powder as well. We're aiming for about 1 cup of liquid. We're going to add half a cup of water. I'm just using it and stirring out the rest of the honey there so it's not wasted. So half a cup of water, and then that's our sort of liquid portion. And then just to flavor that, we're going to add a teaspoon of chicken stock powder. I still want this sauce to be nice and thick, so I'm going to go in with ye old faithful corn flour. I've got 2 heaped teaspoons of corn flour there, but I think I end up going back in with an extra one just because I wanted it to be nice and thick. We've got some whole grain mustard, so we're going to go in with a heaped teaspoon of that for some flavour. Dijon mustard, we're going to go in with maybe a smaller teaspoon of that, or maybe even half a teaspoon. I didn't want it to be too overpowering for the kids. I find that using whole grain is a lot more of a milder flavour. And we're just going to whisk that together before warming that up on the stove top to thicken that up in the background. So I've finished shallow frying all of our chicken, and then I've just popped it into the oven at 180 just to help cook that through, and that just buys me some time to juggle, bath time, feeding the baby in between pulling dinner together. So that was me just checking with the meat thermometer that it was definitely cooked all the way through. I could have just hacked into a bit, but I sort of wanted it to be nice and pretty on the table, so it wasn't so much of a wham bam thank you ma'am kind of appearance. You know what I mean? I ran out of rice bubbles to do my last little bit, so he just got shallow fried in a little bit of that batter and just cooked through. So I sort of left him to the side because I'm thinking, one of these things is not like the others. Flashback to play school. And don't forget, this is just 2 chicken breasts that I've prepared, so it looks like a lot more than what you would think for 2 chicken breasts, so we're just trying to stretch that out. Now it's time to plate up. I'm just going to surround my chicken with our veggies, and I'm going to drizzle our sauce on top, and then dinner will be ready. Now dinner is served. I finished off the potatoes on an oven safe plate that it's on with a little bit of cheese on top just to melt that, covered it with some shallots, and here is our dinner ready. As you can see, the rice bubbles did not fall off because of that nice thick batter, and the kids thought it was delicious, and I will definitely make it again. Now the last meal we're going to make together is some Greek meatballs, and we're going to bulk it up with 1 cup of oatmeal soaked in 1 cup of water that we're going to put aside to absorb while we prepare everything else. This is a trick that you can use to help extend your meat, make your meat go further. If you're interested in other ways that you can save money on your groceries and make your food go further, I will link a popular video below. Next, we're going to start preparing our Greek fries. These looked so beautiful and they tasted amazing. So we're just going to go in with a mandolin because I want them to be a nice thin fry compared to the normal like home style like chips that I would normally do. The mandolin missed a few, so I'm just going to go and just hand slice those to match the others. Add a couple of palmfuls of water to this, and I ended up microwaving this for a little bit longer because there's quite a few potatoes in there. I think it was closer to 14 minutes until they were nice and softened. Now that oatmeal has been soaking in milk for a little while, it's time to create our meatballs. Now, I adapted a few recipes because I just wanted to use what I had. Season that generously with some salt, pepper. I'm going to use an Italian herb mix because that's got parsley, basil, oregano, that whole mixture in there. And I'm going to go in generously with that, about 1.5 tablespoons. I'm going to add a bit of extra oregano through there as well by about 1 teaspoon. 2 garlic cloves. I juiced some lemons knowing I'd need that for a few recipes today, so I've added about 1.5 tablespoons of some freshly squeezed lemon juice. 1 egg to bind it together. And we can't forget our rice bubbles because that was the whole point, right? We're going to make dinner with rice bubbles. So we've already beefed it up with 1 cup of oatmeal. And instead of using, yesterday's bread or anything like that, we're going to go in with 1 cup of rice bubbles as well. To Greekify these meatballs further, we're going to go in with half a piece of feta from the deli, reserving the other half for our Greek fries later on. We're just going to crumble that in and then we're going to mix that all together. Once you've finished shaping these, I'm going to roast them or bake them for about 25 minutes on 180. You can use an air fryer and rotate them, but because I had so many, I just found that easier just to whack it in the oven, leaving me hands-free to do other things at dinner time. Now that our potatoes are cooked through, we're going to add some Greek seasoning before we put it in the oven and crisp them up. So I'm going to link a recipe below for the Greek seasoning. I just tweaked it a little bit because I didn't want to make a whole batch. I just wanted enough for the fries. So I'm just going to drizzle some olive oil on it, season it generously with some salt and of course some pepper. Now I'm just going to go in with about 1 teaspoon of each of the seasonings. So I've got some onion powder, garlic powder, oregano and dill. If you had some fresh herbs, great, go for it. I just have these in the pantry, so it's just easier for me to cook with. And I'm adding a sprinkle of corn flour to create like a crispy crunch on the outside of all of those fries as well. We're just going to shake that together to mix it all up and then pop that onto a prepared tray and pop in the oven. I will link this tzatziki sauce recipe below, and we're going to need 2 cups of Greek yogurt. I made ours in the Easy Yo because it's like $4.70 for a kilo of yogurt as opposed to like $8 off the shelf. And this system's really like nice and thick. Like when you make yogurt, it's not runny at all. So if you want to see me how I made yogurt in this before and how easy it is, I will link another video below. So I think I don't know why I measured it. I knew it was going to be half a tub. Probably just didn't trust myself. So you need 2 cups of Greek yogurt. To make my life easier, I'm just going to go ahead and add everything into a nice big jar, and then I'm just going to shake it to mix it all together as opposed to using a mixing bowl, mixing everything and then trying to get all of that into a jar that I can store and keep in the fridge. I thought that this would last a lot longer than it did. It was so good that we went through it really, really quickly. You'll need 2 medium garlic cloves minced, 1 cup of finely grated English cucumber. I just used a whole cucumber. I did plan on using the cucumber for a salad as well, in a Greek salad on the side, but I ended up using the whole thing just to make up my 1 cup of cucumber, because once I strained it over the sink in a mesh strainer and squeezed out all of the liquid, there really wasn't much left to my surprise, so I should have bought 2 for this.
You'll need 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar. I didn't have any, so I just substituted balsamic vinegar and it was fine. 2 tablespoons of olive oil. 1 teaspoon of salt. 1 tablespoon of chopped fresh dill, and I didn't have that, so I just went in with about a teaspoon of just dried dill. Okay, maybe a teaspoon and a half by the looks of that. I was pretty generous. And it asked for fresh ground black pepper as well. This is all the cucumber that I have left after draining it on the sink, squeezing it out repeatedly out of that whole cucumber. I've got like a large handful and I needed a cup. So yes, if you want to make a side Greek salad to go with dinner, you'll need 2 cucumbers because pretty much 1 cucumber is just for this sauce. Go ahead and shake up your jar so then you don't need to worry about a mixing bowl and a spoon. And then we're going to set that in the microwave, in the fridge, not the microwave, in the fridge just to help those flavors develop. Now the last thing we're going to make is our Greek salad and our homemade Greek salad dressing. Now this is quite simple. All of the flavors throughout this whole meal are all very similar, so it's not like you needed a whole stack of different ingredients. They're all very similar. So we're going to go in with 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. I will link this below. 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. I use my balsamic. You need 1 garlic clove that is minced. You need 1/4 teaspoon of Dijon mustard. You also need 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano. I didn't have much left in the bottom of mine, so I just threw the whole lot in. And you need 1/4 teaspoon of salt and some freshly ground black pepper as well. Same deal, I'm preparing all of this in a jar so I can just shake that and then serve it when I'm ready. Next up, we're just going to chop all of our ingredients for a simple Greek salad, minus the cucumber. Now dinner turned out beautifully. I pulled out the fries out of the oven, drizzled some tzatziki sauce on it, crumbled some extra feta, a sprinkle of dill, finely chopped red onion, and that was ready to go. There's our dipping sauce that I also put all over our meatballs, and I finished it off with a glaze that I've used many times before on my channel. I'll show you in a second. And this is our really simple Greek salad because I ran out of cucumbers and I just wanted to keep it really simple and flavoursome and easy, and dinner was a win.
Thank you for clicking on this video and spending your time with me in my kitchen. I hope that you are inspired to create a delicious meal at home that will not cost you and your family a fortune, something that the kids will love to eat as well. Thanks again for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. If you enjoy cooking on a budget, minimum effort, maximum payoff kind of meals, that's my vibe at the moment. And I'll see you on my next video. Thank you. Bye.